Hello and welcome everyone. Today we are digging into a really powerful framework called Zone to Win. It's all about a question that should keep every leader up at night. Why do massive, successful companies, the ones at the absolute top of their game, suddenly just disappear?
And hey, a special welcome to our fun little study group for PP 5361. This is a bonus section, and it's inspired by the Zone to Win leadership style that Paul Mounts Jr. talked about in class. It turns out Zone to Win is actually a fantastic book by Geoffrey and we thought, let's break it down and share the big ideas with all of you.
So yeah, the whole idea we're talking about today comes from this book by the legendary Geoffrey. And what's really important to get is that he designed this specifically for established organizations, the big players, who are suddenly finding it incredibly hard to keep up in this age of constant, relentless disruption.
Okay, so what's the actual problem Moore is trying to fix here? Well, it all boils down to this one fundamental conflict that he calls the crisis of prioritization.
I mean, really think about that question. It's the one that haunts every boardroom. You can be the leader. You can be hitting all your numbers, making everyone happy, and somehow you could still be on a collision course with total irrelevance. So how on earth does that happen?
Just take a look at this corporate graveyard. DEC, Nokia, BlackBerry, Yahoo, the list goes on. Now, according to Moore, these weren't poorly managed companies. Far from it. They were the best at what they did. Their downfall wasn't incompetence. It was because they were so darn good at their current business that they completely missed the next big thing coming over the horizon.
And that brings us to the heart of the matter, the crisis of prioritization. It's basically an internal tug of war. You've got the established products that are paying all the bills right now, and they're screaming for resources. But then you've got these risky new ideas that might be the future, and they need resources too. It's this brutal fight between short-term profits and long-term survival.
So, if that's the crisis, what's the way out? Well, Moore proposes this absolutely brilliant way to organize the company so you can handle both today and tomorrow. And he calls it the 4 zones.
And here it is. This is the core of the whole framework. It's a simple 2x2 grid that cuts through all the noise. See, on one axis, you've got the stuff that makes you money right now versus the investments that will hopefully make you money later. And on the other axis, you separate the small improvements to what you already do from the big, disruptive ideas that could change everything. And boom, this simple grid gives us our 4 zones.
So let's do a quick tour of these 4 zones, because each one has a very, very different job to do.
First up, we've got the performance zone. This is the engine room. It's the heart of the company as it exists today. Its mission is super simple. Hit the numbers, make the sales, bring in the revenue. This is where your big, profitable, established businesses live. It's all about flawless execution, quarter after quarter.
All right, next is the productivity zone. You can think of these folks as the support crew. This is where you find HR, IT, finance, legal, all the shared services. Their entire job is to help the performance zone run better, faster, and cheaper. They are the cost centers that make the profit centers possible.
Okay, now things start to get really interesting. Welcome to the incubation zone. This is basically the company's in-house venture capital fund. Its job is to play with new, crazy, potentially disruptive ideas. The goal here is not to make money right away. The goal is to create options, real, viable options for the company's future. And get this, failure isn't just tolerated here. It's actually expected. It's part of the discovery process.
And finally, the transformation zone. Now this zone is special. It's temporary. And it has one single, incredibly high-stakes mission. Take one winning idea from the incubation zone and scale it up to become the company's next big thing. We're talking about something that could generate over 10% of the company's entire revenue. This is an all-hands-on-deck, bet-the-company kind of move.
So here's the absolute key to making this work. Each zone has a crystal clear mission, a mantra. Performance zone, your job is to make the top line. Productivity zone, you make the bottom line. Incubation zone, you create options. And the transformation zone, your job is to make a massive change. When everyone knows their specific role, that crisis of prioritization starts to fade away.
Okay, so we get the zones, but how do you actually use them? Well, Moore says leadership has to make a very conscious choice between 2 different strategies. You're either playing offense or you're playing defense.
And you can see the 2 paths right here. When you play offense, you're taking a great idea from incubation and pouring everything into the transformation zone to build that next giant business. But when you play defense, you're taking those little innovations and feeding them right back into your existing products, all to protect your current turf from a new threat.
Let's break down zone offense for a second. This is your big swing. It's high risk, but it's also high reward. The whole point is to catch that next massive wave of innovation before your competitors do. The entire company has to rally behind the transformation zone. You pick one idea and you go all in to scale it, fast. If you pull it off, you get explosive growth.
But what happens if you're the one being disrupted? This is where Moore's advice gets really provocative. He says when those consultants come in and tell you to disrupt yourself, you should tell them to get lost. His point is, you don't intentionally destroy your own successful business. Instead, you play defense.
So what does zone defense look like? Well, the goal is pure survival. Your number one priority is protecting that cash cow in the performance zone. You do this by looking at the disruptive threat, picking out the good enough features that customers care about, and then building those into your existing products. The goal isn't to be the coolest new thing, it's just to neutralize the threat and hold on to your customers.
So let's pull all of this together. What is it that makes this whole framework so powerful for any leader who's trying to navigate all this crazy change?
Well, at the end of the day, its real power is in its clarity. It gives the entire organization a shared language and a clear structure. It finally lets you manage that natural, unavoidable, and often destructive conflict between running today's business and building tomorrow's.
And if you're thinking about actually doing this, Moore lays out 4 really critical principles. First, all the zones have to work together. Second, you can't manage them all the same way. Each one needs its own playbook and its own metrics for success. Third, and this is huge, leadership has to pick a lane, offense or defense. You can't do both at once. And finally, this isn't just good management. Navigating real disruption requires extraordinary leadership.
You know, when you boil it all down, the whole point of the Zone to Win framework can be summed up in this one beautiful idea. It's a system for freeing the future of your organization from the powerful gravitational pull of its own past success.
And that brings it all right back to us, to our study group. Look, this framework was designed for the corporate world, but this challenge is absolutely universal. So here's the question for us to chew on. How could a public service organization use these zones? How can it protect its performance zone, its core mission-critical duties to the public, while still finding a way to fund an incubation zone to discover better, more innovative ways to serve people in the future? It's a fascinating question. Thanks so much for joining this little explainer.